Welcome back to Resilience plus Rise, the space where we excavate the extraordinary from the heart of the challenge. I'm your host, Thomas Scaria, and if you're feeling the pull towards a deeper purpose, a more impactful legacy beyond the peaks you have already conquered, then you're in the right space. Because just like 26.2 transformative miles I explored in my book, life's most significant chapters often begin when we dare to redefine our finish line. And yes, it is available to buy. When I said the word about legacy, today for me, it's truly an honor. Because the question I'll start this podcast is that are you striving to lead with a greater purpose? Forge a legacy that truly matters? Then you absolutely need to tune in to this episode of Resilience plus Rise, where I'm having the distinct pleasure of speaking with remarkable retired Lieutenant Colonel Oakland McCulloch. Oak, as he's known, he brings over 4 decades of invaluable leadership experience forged in the crucible of the US Army, an impactful civilian role. His journey is a testament to the unwavering dedication from commanding troops in the infantry and the armor branches to navigating high stakes operational deployment in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm in the sands of Saudi Arabia or Iraq, supporting operations in Bosnia and peacekeeping deployment in various parts. Oak's commitment to service is not just when he was in the army. It went further in the relief operations in US, whether we are talking about the hurricanes which has been sweeping across. He also dedicates himself in shaping future leaders through an instructor position. He's also an author. And guys, I just realized I can go on, but let's just jump and talk to the man himself, the leader, as he considers your leadership legacy. Lieutenant Colonel Oakland McCulloch. Welcome to Resilience plus Rise.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Thomas. I've really been looking forward to this. And call me Oak, please.
Where do I begin? So, you have forged the element of leadership through years of learning, whether it was in the battlefield grounds and moving more. I've had the privilege of talking to veterans who had the challenges when they came out of the army. They were very, in its own way, I would say, it's not the right word, but confused about where else to go into.
Sure.
But you have shown that, with a mindset, you can create an amazing journey, not only towards your own environment, but people and the country around you. So, what's your story?
Yeah, so, you hit the nail on the head there. A lot of people who transition out of the military, especially after a career in the military, they seem lost when they come out because, it's that brotherhood, it's that culture, it's all of those things that's your life. That's all you knew for the last 20, 30 years. And so a lot of people have a hard time coming out and figuring out what it is they want to do. And when I talk to people who are getting ready to transition out of the military, whether they made a career out of it or they just spent 4 years in it, in the military, the thing I tell them to always ask themselves is, what do you want to do? What do you think you want to do, and why? Always come back to that why. Why is it that that's important to me? And if you can answer the question why, then you can figure out if that's the right path for you or not. And when I left the Army, I believe in servant leadership. I believe in selfless service, and I had opportunities to join the Fortune, corporate world, and I had absolutely no interest in that. And so when I left the Army, I ran a food bank for a couple of years, a very large food bank along the Gulf Coast of the U.S. It covered 3 states, 52 counties, and took over right before the BP oil spill that shut down the Gulf.
Wow.
So we had to add all of those people who normally made a good living in the Gulf, who couldn't go out and work. We had to add them to the food bank rosters where we were helping to hand out food to them. So, to me, it was all about selfless service. And then I left that job and became a recruiter for Army ROTC as a Department Army civilian. And again, to me, it was about giving back to young men and women. It wasn't about me. It was about helping them figure out if this was the path they really wanted to take, being an officer in the Army, and giving them the opportunity to do that if that's really what they decided they wanted to do. And I've been lucky. I've been able to pursue my passion of helping other people most of my career, and that really is my passion. Continuing that now with keynote talks about leadership and success, and trying to help people be not only better leaders but better people.
Amazing. And guys who are listening to this, I will be putting the information about where you can contact Oak. So whether it is through his website, whether it is through about the books that he has written, or just to know the human that he is. So Oak, my way of looking most of the time comes from the fact that our purpose comes from, paraphrasing Rumi, from our deepest of wounds. It's a pivot that happens at some point of time in the life. Yes, we have been maybe in an environment wherein we have always learned about servant leadership, whether it is a community, whether it is a church, whether it is wherever it is. But when you're forging yourself ahead, like I have read about what your background is, you are focused in what you're doing. Were there incidents that made you rethink about, I'm just not in the army, I'm over here for the betterment of humans or the people?
Yeah, so I was lucky when I was growing up. I mean, I had hardship just like everybody does. I had a sister who died at the age of 6, and I was 4. She died of leukemia. And then I became the oldest in the family, which I think helped shape me in some ways. But growing up, I had a father who wasn't always a nice man, but he always made sure that I understood what the purpose in life was. It is to be successful, to help other people, to do those type of things. And he drove me to, I am who I am today because of him. There is no doubt about that in my mind, good and bad. But then I also had 2 great mentors in high school who kind of set me on this path. And I stayed in contact with them till today, except one died about 18 months ago. It was my high school history teacher, Mr. Charles Schindler, an amazing man, and my high school basketball coach, Coach Terry Nidzwicki, who I still stay in contact with today. Mr. Schindler died about 18 months ago, but every time I'd go home back to my hometown, I'd stop in and see him and talk to him and communicate with him over social media type stuff on a regular basis. And they were both servant leaders. They understood that it wasn't just about, in Mr. Schindler's case, teaching history. And Miss Coach Niedzwicki's case, putting together a great basketball team. They realized that their biggest purpose in life was to help create young men and women who were going to be good husbands, good wives, good fathers, good mothers, good people in this world, productive members of society. And I don't care what problem you had, you could walk into their office anytime, sit down, and they would sit and listen to you and give you some advice. Wouldn't tell you what to do. They just give you some advice. This is how I've seen it done. This is how I've seen people handle that situation. Still up to you to make those decisions, but at least you had somebody to go get some kind of experience from. And those two people had a huge impact in my life as a young man. And then I had a couple great leaders in the Army who had impacts, who were also servant leaders, who taught me that that was the right way to do it. And it didn't take a whole lot of teaching. I mean, you could see the way they led, and you could see the way some of the other people led, and it was clear that that's the right answer. And so that's why I headed down that road. And I have always tried, you know, I've been lucky in my career. I had my hand in commissioning over 600 lieutenants for the United States Army over my career. And I tried to impart that on every one of them as well, that it's not about you, and yet it's all about you. It's not about the title you get or the privileges you're going to get or that you're going to get better pay and live in a nicer house and drive a nicer car. Okay, leaders get those things, okay, most of the time. And that's okay, as long as that's not the only reason you want to be the leader. If that's the only reason you want to be the leader, go do something else, please, because you're not going to be a good one. It is all about you and how you treat and empower the people and the organizations that you have the privilege to lead. And it is a privilege to be the leader. And not just to lead them, make them better workers, whether that's a soldier or a factory worker, whatever you lead, it's helping to make them be better people. And I got that from Mr. Schindler and Coach Terry Niedzwicki, that's what life is about. And if that isn't what life is about, then I don't know why we're here.
Wow, there are many questions that comes up over here. When we look back, yes, there are mentors or there are figures around us who have made us who we are in its own way, whether it's the good or maybe sometimes not so good.
That's right.
When you were in the army and when you were commanding 600 plus lieutenants and telling them what needs to be done, there would have been a lot of other pivots in your life wherein you would have seen life slipping away. And this one I'm taking it from a page of another another conversation I had, is that when you see people who we have known, spoken to, sat down and had dinner, and they don't come to the table the next day for dinner, how do you handle those situations? How have you converted those moments to the leadership legacy that you now advocate for?
Yeah, so I think you know, you're not going to be able to reach everybody. I'm sorry, you know, that'd be nice if you could. That's called fantasy land. In the real world, no matter how hard you try, there are some people who are just going to ignore what the knowledge, the experience you have, and they're going to go their own way. I always tried, when I had young men and women who were under my command, I always tried to give them good advice. And if I saw them going down a road that wasn't going to end well for them, then I would try to step in, and I wouldn't try to prevent them from doing what they're doing. That's their choice. But I would at least try to explain to them, in my experience of life, where you're headed. And it's probably not good. You know, and my father taught me that. When I was a young man, my father told me one time, he said, "Son, life is about decisions and consequences. Every decision you make has a consequence. Some are good, some are bad. And you got to get to the point in your life where you are making decisions that give you good consequences. Otherwise, until you do that, life is going to be pretty rough on you. And he said, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. He said, every time you're about to make a decision, every time you're about to do something, think in your mind, think, would my mom want me to know that I'm about to do this? And if the answer is yes, then that's probably a pretty good decision. If the answer is no, then you probably need to rethink that one. And so I always tried to pass simple things like that on to people just to make them stop and think about what they were about to do. And again, for me, a lot of it goes back to the why. Why am I about to do this? Is it because I'm being selfish? Is it because I'm not caring about somebody else? So I think if you always come back to that question, why, and your values, then I think you'll make good decisions. Every time, no. None of us are perfect. You know, the only perfect person that ever walked this earth, we nailed to a cross 2,000 years ago. None of us are perfect, but the more you try, the better off you're going to be. And that reminds me of a great quote. Vince Lombardi once said, excellence or perfection is unattainable. But if you strive for perfection, you might reach excellence. And that is, I've kind of lived my life that way. I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect, even though I try to keep convincing my wife I am. She's not buying it. You would think after 38 years I could convince her, but no. But I try to reach that perfect, knowing that I'm not going to be perfect ever, but at least I can get as close as I can to it.
Okay. Here, a question which comes up is that, yes, you have been in the army, you have been in many spaces where there have been disasters, working on disaster control. As you mentioned, you have been also in the food bank, wherein you have seen the hurting, where people are coming to a point where they are literally going in for the food. When you look into these elements, the empathy, because again, the empathy factor is one of the most important elements. Is that, especially for me as a leader, how has that played onto the person that you are?
Yeah, because I look at it as that could be me just as easily as it's them, and I would hope that somebody would step up and help me. I live here in Florida, and we get lots of hurricanes, and every opportunity I get after a hurricane, I clean up my area, and then I help neighbors clean up their area if they need it. And they do the same for us. And I think, again, it goes back to, we got to get back to being human to each other, getting to know your neighbors, getting to know who the people that live next to you are. What I see nowadays too often is people come home from work, and I got it, they're tired, they got a family, whatever, but they drive into their garage, the garage door shuts, and then they never come out again until they go back to work the next day. They don't even know their neighbors. If they're lucky if they know their neighbor's name. They have never eaten a meal with them, never had them over for a visit. They've never gone over there for a visit. And that's when you stop being human to each other and you stop caring for each other. Once you get to know people, and I tell leaders this all the time, you have to get to know the people that you are leading, because that's the only way you're going to know when they're hurting, when there's a problem. If you know that person, and I got it, you got to have that leader-led relationship. I got that. That doesn't mean you can't get to know them and they can't get to know you a little bit. It just makes your job easier, and it makes their life better. And anybody who comes to work that wants to come to work is going to do a better job for you than somebody who's dreading coming to work. So it's a win-win situation. You're helping them and they're helping you. And we got to get back to doing that.
Amazing. And that's what I have been always advocating, is that where I say it in a different way, is that we all are like angels with one wing. When we hold another, that's when we can fly higher.
Yeah, there you go.
So it is all about the community. We are put in the space where we call life. Had we wanted to be just by ourselves, I don't think so. There would have been a sense of community. It would have been
Right.
a different world. But there is a reason we all come together. And it goes much more further than just taking care of our family or working towards a better car, a better house, etc. In its own way, we look at it. If you look into some of the animal kingdom, also they also do the same thing. Is that they just take care, more or less take care of the family, and it works from there. But as humans, we build on a larger community. So when you're talking about communities by itself, and when you look back at some elements that has taken place in your last 40 to 50 years of being in of service as a servant leader, have there been some notable impacts that has created such a beautiful, remarkable difference to the people that you have worked with?
Right. Yeah. So I can think back to two that really stick in my mind. And again, going back to my childhood, I grew up in a small little farm town of 1,200 people in northern Illinois. And I can remember as a kid, we used to have block parties. They'd shut off both sides of the street. We'd put up tables in the middle of the street. Everybody would bring food out. We'd all sit around and eat. We'd play games as kids. The adults would talk. Again, getting to know each other, spending time with each other, treating people with the dignity and respect and friendship that we all need, want, and desire. And then fast forward a long time to when I got promoted to major. I got promoted to the rank of major. I was in Maryland. Didn't live on post then. I lived off post. And I was living in a community that had been there for about 50 years. And we moved in, and I threw a promotion party. I invited everybody in the neighborhood to come to our house for a promotion party. And I figured out during that party that there were there were two people in there that were neighbors of ours, almost right across the street from each other, both of those families had lived there for 50 years, and they had never visited each other's house. They'd never had a meal together. So I said, okay, well, we'll fix that. In a couple of weeks, because we were getting ready to leave on a vacation, I said, in a couple of weeks when we get back, you two are coming over to our house and we're going to have dinner at our house. And then after that, then you can have dinner and have other people over. And then you can have dinner and have other people over. And we started to get them to talk to each other and actually get to know each other. And by the time we left there, we were there for 2 years. People were actually saying hi to each other on the street as they were walking by. People were coming out as you were working in your yard. People would walk across the street and talk to you for a little bit. And that wasn't happening when I first got there. And it all comes down to treating people the way that we should be treating people. Nothing, no rocket science to that. It just get to know the people around you. Because, let's face it, it starts in the family.
Sure.
As a male husband, father, I got to take care of my family. But then once you have done that and you've got that somewhat under control, I don't know that we ever have it completely under control, then you start branching out. Then it's your neighbors, then it's your community, then it's town. And you just keep making a bigger circle as big as you can influence. And when I told somebody that one time, they said, well, what can I do? I said, you can do what you can do. And if that just means your family and your neighbors, then okay, good. Then you accomplish something. If that means your family, your neighbors, and the community, then reach out that far. But you do what you have to do, what you can do. And again, reminds me of a great quote by Teddy Roosevelt: do what you can with what you have where you are. And if everybody did that, imagine how much better our neighborhoods, our communities, our towns would be.
Of course, that's something I think so. We have forgotten about being for one another. Currently, there has been a transition about people just live for your own self, bigger toys, bigger house. Again, it comes back to those particular things. What is my social status? And we can talk on length on those particular things, but just being mindful of time, Oak, is that when we look at your book, your leadership legacy, and the experience that you have come across, what are few suggestions that to the listeners on this particular who have been listening to the podcast, what is the suggestions that you would like them to put across? I know you have told about being of service to one another, but what else can you tell for them to be better humans or live a better life? That would be a better way of looking at it.
Yeah, honestly, legacy means something to me, or I wouldn't have titled my book that. And I've thought over the years a lot about legacy, and people ask me a lot, so what do you want your legacy to be? And I always tell them I want it to be that I helped other people, that I was a good person helping other people. But to me, legacy has two parts. It is a small part of what you actually accomplish in life, whether that's in your job or whatever, wherever. That's a very small piece, especially at your job. And the reason I tell people that is because if you tie your legacy to what you accomplished in your job, and the next leader comes in and changes everything, then where's your legacy? So
True.
your real legacy is that next generation of leaders and good people that you help create, not just workers, but people that you help create. And that really, I always believed that, but that was really cemented in my mind when I was running my ROTC program at the University of South Alabama in Mobile. And I was talking to Master Sergeant David Powell, who worked for me. And I say he worked for me. He was probably a better leader than I was. And one day we were talking about the significance of what we were doing, helping to create that next generation of leaders, not only for the Army, but for this country. And he looked over at me and said, sir, great leadership handed down from generation to generation is what develops great nations. And I thought, wow, what a powerful quote. And the most powerful part of that quote is that you can take that word nations and you can substitute anything you want for it. Family, community, hospital, food bank, university, business, whatever, because every organization needs good leadership. And it's our job, our responsibility to pass on these lessons that we learned over all these years of being a leader to that next generation, because we are going to leave our job at some point. I promise you, one way or another. You're either going to quit, you're going to fire, you're going to retire, or you're going to die. You are leaving that job one way or another. And if you have not done a good job of helping to create that next generation of leaders that's going to take your place, shame on you.
Ouch. That was very good. So, Oak, now that you have got this experience and you are still striving to work towards the betterment, what are few of the key projects that you have got in the next few months or few years, something that has been planned around, if you would like to say about that?
What do I have on the calendar? What do I have planned?
Yeah, or what's if you got some plans, if you got some I know that you are a keynote speaker, you do have your courseware and you got your programs which has just expanded cause what you believed in. But is there something else that's happening around that you would want the listeners to know about?
Yeah. So I'm working on my second book. It's not going as fast as I would hope because I've got a lot of things going on. But I'm working on it. I've started. I did the table of contents. I've started the first chapter, so I'm working on my second book, and it's going to be about success. That's another keynote talk I give is arm yourself for success. And the first thing I always tell people when I give that talk is there are no guarantees of success. Sorry. Anybody who stands up here on this stage and tells you if you do these 15 things, you're going to be successful, run away from those people. They're trying to sell you something. I can give you things that might help you become successful if you do them and they work for you. But some of the things I tell you to do may not be for you. And that's okay. You got to figure out what those are and what to use and what not to use. But all you can do is give some advice and some experience that you had. So I've got the book in the works. I have started a leadership development course that I'm doing. I just signed a contract for the first one where I'm doing a year-long leadership development program for a company, and I'm trying to do those things. I will tell you the other thing that is that my wife and I both are very passionate about is our church and doing community work in the church. You know, we have a food pantry and we work at that. We have outreach programs and we work with that. So I dedicate a lot of my time, not because I have to, but because I want to help other people in the community through that. So I guess that would be I just want to continue to be involved in the community and help other people. That's my goal at this point in my life. I just turned 62 in January, so I'll be 63 in January. And I love to fish, and I live here in Daytona Beach. Lots of water all around us. I love to fish. And my fishing buddy has said to me, he said, "Oh, what are you doing? Why are you flying all over the world talking? Just go fishing every day." And I said, "I can't. I look at it as my responsibility to help whoever I can, and I look at it, I've got 4 ways to do that. 5 ways, actually. I got 5 ways to do that. I've got my keynote talks. I've got my book. I've got social media. I've got podcasts. And then I've got my community outreach that I do. And I just try to use all of them as much as I can to help other people. And, I've had people that I was on somebody's podcast. The very first podcast I was ever on, it was one here in Florida, kind of local. And the guy asked me if I'd be on his show, and I said, absolutely, I'd love to. It was my very first one. And he said, well, I just started this about 4 weeks ago, and you're going to be my 3rd guest. And I've only got about 35 listeners right now. He said, so I'm not really sure it's worth your time. And I said, listen to me. If we helped one person, it was worth our time. Absolutely.
Perfect. That's exactly what I say in most of my podcasts. That's amazing. And that last statement is that for me, it is the power of one. If one person can if they listen to it and there is a stirring within their own self, some inspiration, some motivation, I think so we have reached our goal. So, Oak,
well,
thank you.
Just on that, because that's a great point. Because you don't know what that one person that you reached, who they're going to reach, and then who they're going to reach. And that power of that is just unbelievable. And so I believe in it. And so every time I talk, every time I go out, my goal is to help at least one person. If I can help 10, 15, 100, good, but at least one. And then I encourage every one of them to go out and help one person.
Wonderful. Thank you so very, very much. So, guys, as I mentioned, I'll be putting out Oak's connections in the comments. Today, what we heard, there was a statement that he put across wherein I read, and that's one of the elements that I wanted to reach out to him, that today's leaders have a responsibility to inspire the leaders of tomorrow. His book, Your Leadership Legacy, Becoming the Leader That You're Meant to Be. In our conversation, we have just seen using the experience into practical, common sense principle that resonates with humans and leaders at every level. Oak mentioned about his life, which was been shaped both his childhood as well as the extensive military and civilian careers that he's been having. The legacy, what he believes in, whether it's imparting to one person or countless individuals. Yes, when I just been listening to this conversation, and he putting in this space and time. One thing which I know is that these are actionable strategies, real world wisdom, and a renewed sense of purpose. So, would you be a leader and build a legacy that lasts? With this, oh, I say thank you for your space and time. It has been just amazing.
Thank you for having me on, Thomas.